Hey folks, Jamie Stokes from Royal LePage here. In today's video, I want to talk about building more affordable housing and, talking about numbers, just not getting into too much detail, but we're going to discuss what the government has said recently. So earlier in the year, they talked about developing a plan that would make it easier for developers and people to build on current properties. For example, a single family detached, they would be looking at turning it into a triplex and building, if the lot's big enough, building another property on the home in order to help ease what the government admitted was a housing crisis here in Canada. So when they first put out a plan for building more homes, they discussed building 1.5 million homes over a 10-year span. Now, fairly recently, they've said that they will be bringing in 1.5 million, basically 1.5 million new immigrants or refugees. So their 10-year plan for building 1.5 million new homes has kind of gone up in smoke because they're going to be bringing this many immigrants or refugees here into Canada. Now, I'm not going to knock refugees or immigrants into Canada. Obviously, I'm here in Canada and I would be here from immigration myself. So I can't knock it regardless. And I am aware that Canada does need skilled labor and refugees and immigrants to come here in order to fill some things here in Canada to keep our workforce alive, education, things like this. So the plan for the government building 1.5 million new homes, I don't think obviously isn't a good plan. Most of our immigrants and refugees end up in the Greater Toronto area anyways. So these plans, well, yeah, they're pretty good, but I know there was 50 points that they touched on. I'm not going to get into each point, but the amount of immigrants or refugees that they're bringing into Canada over the next 3 years is equivalent to their plan for building over the next decade, 10 years. So I don't know how they're going to solve things as they are, but it just goes to show you that the government's plan can't work and they need to build obviously more homes. I do applaud them on a few different things, making it easier to develop land, and they're supposed to be lowering fees or eliminating fees in some areas in order to get the ball rolling here. They promise less red tape, among other things. So we'll see what happens here. Either way, I don't believe that there's been a solid plan here. And there's a few different issues that I see. One of them being when they come out with new builds, for example, new builds are typically a great investment. You put your money down, you pay over a certain period of time, a certain amount, and by the time your new build's done, you've already made really good money off of it. So you lead into assignments and stuff like this, and this is an investor's game here. So anytime you build new homes or more affordable homes, you have a lot more competition as well. First of all, we need somewhere to put Canadians who currently are struggling with housing. And I know it's a huge problem because the price of rent is absolutely crazy right now. I mean, it is on mortgages too, but I'm seeing people who qualify to rent properties when they could spend the same amount to actually buy their own property. So I think this is part of the problem here. You have investors who own multiple properties, and yes, I know I'm going to get some flack about saying this, but I think it's a dream for Canadians to own their own properties, and for investors to own 3, 4, 5 properties or more sometimes, or whatever. Yeah, there needs to be somebody that invests in this. I'm not dull to the knowledge that we do have a housing crisis and a problem here in Canada. So we do need to have homeowners and landlords in order for housing to work here as it is. But I think making homes more affordable is important. And when it comes to affordability, there's a lot of frustration out there by tenants saying that, their rent is $3,000 a month, but plus utilities and whatever else, but they can't afford or they don't qualify to buy their own home, where the mortgage payment would probably or would be less than what they're paying in rent right now. So I see that as being a problem. I think lending criteria, I mean, banks have really messed up as things are. We're seeing failure of different things here. And when it comes to the banking system, not, around the globe, it's not being talked about as much as it should be, in my opinion. But we do have problems with our banking system and stuff like this. So building homes that are more affordable, it also comes with more competition. Your first-time home buyers, they want to get into the market for something that's like, $500,000 or maybe $600,000 or less. And when you have these properties that are really cheap, you're competing with as a first-time home buyer, for example, you're going to be competing with a large market of smaller first-time home buyers. You're going to be competing with construction people, flippers, investors, all this stuff. So an investor could be a landlord, or could be somebody who's fixing up the property and reselling it at a profit. So there needs to be some actual solutions here when it comes to the housing market here in the GTA or in Canada. I do think that we need to take a better look at who's buying the properties. A lot of people will say, oh, it's foreign investors, but according to statistics, and I'm not always a fan of statistics, I talked in a previous video about how foreign investors often own more than one property. And I understand the backlog to this, because I know of people who are from other countries who are very good friends of mine, and we discuss this openly, removing money from their home country and bringing it over here because it's a much safer place to put your money than back home. So I understand how this works and how it plays into our housing market. The statistics are not very high for foreign investors owning multiple properties here in Canada. It's not super duper low, but it's definitely not high. So they've jumped the taxes up from 20 to 25% for foreign buyers. I don't think this is as much of a deterrent. In my opinion, I think the government doesn't really care, because that brings in more competition, which drives housing prices up, and it also creates more income for the government. So I don't think that they really care so much. They're using this to generate more revenue from foreign buyers. Whether it's right or not, I know a lot of Canadians are going to say that they're upset because the amounts in rent that they're paying right now are a huge problem, because they can afford to pay rent, but they can't afford to qualify to buy their own home. Meanwhile, what they're paying in rent is probably more than what their mortgage would be on a property that they might want to buy. So obviously that's a problem. So developing a program for tackling the housing crisis, which our own government has admitted that there is a housing crisis here. I mean, if you think about it, look back, how did we get to where we are, and why are we still here? There's been, for quite some time, there's been discussion of how the government can change things, from realtors, realtor associations, different things like this, and the government's kind of just brushed them all aside. I mean, as long as they're making money and house prices are high, I think everything's good. It generates good property taxes and the rest of this. So I don't really see an incentive for the government. I mean, they're all sitting there with cushy jobs anyways, and they're making good money off of it. They're still giving themselves their raises. So I mean, the housing market doesn't really affect them. So why would they care, I guess? But your average Canadian probably does own a home. If they don't, they're renting. And I think everybody in this economy right now is kind of struggling, or has had quite a bit of loss regardless. But we need to do something about the housing crisis, because it is a housing crisis. I also want to touch on, and I've said this before many times, the next thing we're going to be looking at, I mean, one bedroom condos in Toronto are at least $2,000 a month right now. For statistics, I mean, you might say, well, I moved into a place in Scarborough, basement apartment that was, $1,800 or something like this. That's a shoebox or whatever. That's fine. Statistically, I've gone out and I've looked at condos, and I know that condos, the average price for a condo is in some areas equivalent to what, in downtown Toronto, for example, what you would pay for rent for a condo there per month is actually more in some cases than you would pay for an entire house outside of Toronto or outside of the GTA. Rent prices are rising everywhere. It doesn't matter where you are. They're becoming more and more unaffordable, and the cost of living has really impacted people in this situation as well. So I think 2023 we're going to see some shifts in the housing market again. We're definitely going to see some shifts in rent because housing prices going up. I think 2023 we may see housing prices coming back up again. I was looking at some articles earlier today, and just a month, 2 months, 3 months apart, some of the same sources, a month, 2 months, 3 months ago, were saying that we haven't bottomed out yet in our housing market, and I'm kind of on the fence about this now, just because of the cost of living and the cost of borrowing for a mortgage rate now. But at the same time, we have so many things going on that it's hard to say what's going to happen here, right? But it's not going to, it's not going to last forever. It'll last probably for a little while. And then what are we looking at? But rents will continue to climb. Excuse me. So rents will continue to climb. Housing prices have slipped quite a bit. The gains that we made during the pandemic, or after the pandemic, I should say, we've kind of lost those. But when it comes to renting, we're looking at higher rental prices coming up. Cost of borrowing has gone up. Cost of living has gone up, and I keep reiterating these things in my videos for the most part. And if you're going to buy or sell a home, you may want to wait a little while longer. We're going to see things leveling out. There's a select few agents in the GTA here who have made videos on YouTube, and I'm going to say that's wonderful. You guys have made videos about the housing market that seem to be a little bit more truthful than some others. And I want to say and stress how important it is to be honest with everybody when it comes to the housing market, because we haven't, I don't think, fully bottomed out yet. We're still touching on a few different things here. Affordability, the cost of borrowing, like I said, is astronomical. Some places have said that it's become more unaffordable than ever to purchase a home. And we're at the same time, we're not stupid. We know this. The cost of housing and the cost of living, inflation, which, the government's inflation rates are absolute nonsense, but inflation and the cost of living and utilities and things like this and housing versus wages. A statistic that I saw pre-pandemic was it would take the average person 22 or 24 years making like $180,000 a year to save up for a house. That's according to some statistics here. Now, when you start working at age, 14 is the absolute youngest I think you can start working. Don't quote me on that, but typically places won't even hire 14-year-olds. But just as an example, we'll talk about a 14-year-old getting a job and working full-time. First of all, they're not going to be making $180,000 a year. And then for them to take on full-time work for 22 years, they've got school, if they're going to go get secondary school, and then university or college, they're going to tack on more debt to that. So for them working at 14 and working 22 or 24 years, how old are they going to be by this time? And I don't know if they took into effect that housing prices in the meantime will continue to climb. So, there's not really much hope for somebody who works full-time. Young kids like that, they'll get jobs that don't pay very well. They're considered cheap labor. So you're not going to get somebody who's working for 22 or 24 years and getting them to make the type of money that they need for a down payment for a home. At the same time, how much you have for a down payment on a house, it depends on the lender. You don't always need 20% down, but if you don't have 20% down, you have to buy mortgage insurance as protection in case you can't pay your mortgage or whatever. I see, $800,000 with $30,000 deposits, $50,000 deposits, $25,000 deposits, and things change. I know different areas too. I've sold houses in different areas of Ontario, and I can tell you that the deposit structure in different areas is also different. You can do deposits in 2 payments, or I've sold houses before and was absolutely shocked by the down payment that they had, and I asked them for a larger down payment because what they put down as a down payment was, pocket change really. But that was the market at the time when I sold houses there. The deposits were a fraction of what the house price was. Regardless, we do need some changes to the housing market. I want to warn everybody about rents. If you want to sell your house, you need to do so sooner than later. And the reason I say this, house prices eventually, absolutely, I'm not arguing with anybody, house prices will eventually go back up. They have to. It doesn't matter really what's going on. Eventually, they're going to come back up. And this is the good thing about investing in real estate, is you're always going to, as long as you hold on to your property for long enough, you're always going to make your money back. So if you're looking to sell your property, I don't think we've quite hit rock bottom yet. We'll see what kind of market 2023 brings. Everybody's saying, it's kind of probably a 60-40 kind of thing. 60%, a good 60%, maybe even 70% are saying, the housing market is going to bounce back and everything's going to be great. The other remaining percentage says, we haven't quite hit rock bottom, and they're kind of on the same page that I am. And I don't understand this. I do think in part it's because people are uneducated, and based on what's going on around the world. I mean, this is a big picture, so everybody kind of has to pay attention to what is affecting the housing market here. So global events, absolutely. We've got shortages on things, and I think we're not done with the shortages just yet anyways. So when it comes to selling, depending on what your plan is, if you have multiple properties and you need to sell one because you need cash, I would say, now is kind of the time to do it, unless you're going to hold on to it for another year or more. Get the place going now. I've had a bunch of people reach out to me wanting to sell their homes, and I'm not super pushy for people to sell their homes. I always tell people it's best to sell when it's best for you. There'll always be another house or a property for me to list, so I'm not concerned about my commission check that much, and I'll always figure out a way to make things work for me. But I don't think things have quite finished bottoming out yet for our housing market. So if you're going to sell, don't wait till spring. As I've said in past videos, and I've told people in person many times, spring market's always busy. We'll see in a few months what the spring market starts to turn up as. We're in winter now, nearing the end of November, so springtime will kind of give us an idea of how things are working out. Hopefully, I plan on changing up my living situation and moving areas here in the springtime myself. Spring or summer, or closing on a deal in the spring is my goal here. So there's a lot more competition in the spring, which typically brings housing prices down. This isn't what we've always seen. I mean, this past spring was pretty crazy. So I would say, because of what's going on, don't listen to every realtor out there. You kind of have to do your own research, and you have to do what's best for you. Sell when it's best for you. I don't think it's best to listen to any one person's advice. I think you need multiple sources of information, and you need to question people's reasoning for posting the information that they are. There's a lot of agents that are saying they're pushing people to sell. I'm kind of in that situation right now. I don't care if you use me or not. It makes no difference to list your house. I mean, sure, I always appreciate my business, And I'm thankful for everybody who are our clients and friends of mine who use me to and trust me to sell their homes for them, or trust me to help them buy homes. But there's everybody knows 5 realtors. We're so overpopulated with realtors in the GTA. It's not funny. So if you don't use me as your realtor, that's fine. It doesn't really matter. I know people have family that are realtors and whatever else, but sell when it's best for you. Do your research, discuss with realtors what's going on. Now, I've said there's a few realtors out there also that are saying, well, the market's kind of leveled out now. It hasn't quite leveled out yet. I don't know when it's going to, but rents are going to be huge. And they're going to change, like I said previously, they're going to change qualifications. We've got another mortgage rate hike coming up very soon as well. In December, there's another one coming, I think the earlier portion of December. So it's predicted that it's another 0.5% here. So that brings things up pretty high. Hopefully they level out soon, so everything can kind of be a little bit more normalized here and more affordable for people. The banks were lending out incredible amounts of money at super low interest, and this caused everybody to overpay and buy houses, get into the housing market. Now that interest rates have changed, I know there's a lot of people suffering for the choices that they've made months ago, but here we are. Things do change. I would suggest, if you're interested in selling as well, to talk to a mortgage agent. I had a meeting with a mortgage agent recently, Sherry. She was very good. She discussed, and I don't discuss mortgages too much because, as I said to her, I don't go outside my scope of things. Do I know about mortgages? I know a little bit about mortgages, not enough to advise you, and I'm not licensed. I'm not a licensed mortgage broker, so I don't discuss mortgages with people. I don't give advice on mortgages because this isn't my area of expertise. And I told her exactly the same thing that she told me, is for us to stay in our own lanes. This makes it so that we don't have any problems legally. We're not giving our clients bad advice. If somebody's not licensed in mortgages or whatever, sure, they may have an opinion on something, but I focus on real estate, and this is my profession, so I stick with it within my own lane, and I leave the mortgage issues to the professionals, professional mortgage agents. But my discussion with her was pretty interesting. We were talking about reverse mortgages and ways to close on houses, different options that are available. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me. I'll give you some phone numbers that you can call for mortgage agents, and no, I don't get any kickbacks or nothing like that, so don't get me started on that. But on a serious note, you can use whatever mortgage agent you want. I've always highly recommended mortgage agents rather than banks. I won't get into that right now because the video is long enough as is, but there's going to be some leveling out at some point. Like I kind of joked about earlier, some places that are doing stories on the housing market, just a month or 2 months or 3 months ago, were posting articles about how much worse the housing market's going to get, and now they're posting articles that we may see the housing market leveling out. I do think we have a decent housing market right now. No, you're not going to get the numbers that you had back in, a year ago or whatever, but for where we are right now compared to where we could be. If you bought your house years ago, you're still laughing because you made quite a bit of money off of it. And in the meantime, you haven't paid somebody else's mortgage. You own it, so you can sell it, and you can use that to buy yourself a different property or rent it out, because we do need landlords in order to fill our backlog of tenants here. So that's it for now. If you have any real estate questions, I would really appreciate if you took a look at some of my other videos. I know some of them are long, but if you have a genuine interest in the housing market and thoughts on things, maybe it'll open your mind and expand things a little bit. So I want everybody to, if you would be so kind, please like and share my videos. Subscribe, any of those would help, and I would greatly appreciate it. If you do have a real estate subject that you'd like to get some information on, feel free to reach out to me. My email is jamiestokesrealestate@gmail.com, and my telephone number, my direct line, is 289-927-5991. I'll see you in the next real estate video. Take care for now.